Maybe you teach me.
It wouldn't have been from, did it come through from Zoom?
No,
Me? It came from me?
you sent it
Okay.
today at 2:38. It comes from Zoom.
Yeah, I think it comes from Zoom.
Yeah.
I don't think it comes from me.
2:38. Oh, here it is, pounds.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry.
I won't send you a new email. And quite technically, once again, since we have the owl, you don't even necessarily have to be in there, but that's besides the point.
All right. Well, actually, I didn't want to mute, right? Mute the owl. Just speaking to the owl. Yeah. Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, I want to call the meeting back to order. My apologies for a little bit of a delay. We had an executive session before this and ran over a little bit. So we're back on our agenda for the school committee meeting for September 14th. And the first item up is a public forum. So is there anybody from the participants on the public forum? If you want to raise your hand, electronic hand, that would work. If you want to speak. We're going to have
I got one.
update on the reopening.
No, I have none.
And there'll be an opportunity there if people have questions specific to that. I don't see it.
There was a hand and now there is no longer a hand.
Okay. All right, seeing none, then close the public forum. And we go to the teaching and learning showcase. And we have professional development, an update from the summer and what's happening now in this 13-day period. And then we'll have an update on the school reopening plan.
Okay. I put together the PowerPoint in the opposite. So I don't know if you would mind if we start in that direction. Okay, good. Hold please while I start the slideshow.
So I'll just mention that Dr. Galston, myself, and Mark Sedaris are in the Phillips building, and the other school committee members are remote.
Okay. Excellent. Great. So we wanted this evening just to, as I'm sure we will at every school committee meeting, just update you as to the status of where we're at with our reopening plan and provide you with any updates that we have. So I'm just going to kick it off with just a kind of an overview of where we're at in terms of the phases. Talk a little bit about, considering metrics for, moving into the hybrid. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. McGinnis, who's going to share a lot of information for the community about what we've been doing for the past several days leading up to school. So in terms of phase 2, that's our next phase. Right now we're in phase 1, which is what Dr. McGinnis is going to talk about. Phase 2 is September 17th, 18th, and 21st. That is the time where families are invited to pick up their children's supplies, their books, their Chromebooks. Each of the principals has sent out a newsletter to all of their families talking about the schedule for doing that. So please, if you haven't had a chance to look at the newsletter, I highly suggest you do that because that's where the information about time slots for various grades or alphabetically for the high school is located. So the elementary teachers are also going to be meeting with all of their students for individual meet and greets virtually throughout the 3 days. And then all students, as we talked about, I think at the last meeting, will receive a Chromebook and iPads for kindergarten. I just want to make sure people are aware, grade 1, the delivery for Chromebooks might be a couple of days into the school year. And that's primarily due to the fact that we are repurposing the incoming 9th graders. When they return them, we'll have them right back out to grade 1. So we're well on the way to making that happen. So in terms of phase 3, sorry, click on that. That's September 22nd to October 22nd. As we've been talking about for a very long time, the majority of students will begin remote. Students in our specialized programs or have special education services that require in-person instruction, and level 1 and 2 EL students will begin in-person instruction in phases over the next several weeks. I just wanted to just make sure people are aware how much we truly appreciate our staff who will be coming in to work with our high needs students. That's just say students. And I wanted to also share that 18% of our families right now are actually starting in the Watertown virtual school. So if you recall, we had two different options for families. One was to be in the bridge to hybrid, and the other one was to be in the virtual school or Edgenuity. And right now, about 18% of our families have taken us up on the offer of being virtual all the way through February, if not the entire year. So that's just important to know as well. All students are going to be in cohorts, as we've described, and parents will receive weekly learning plans in this time of, well, from remote learning all the way to hybrid. So phase 4, that's the October 22nd to whenever it is that we move into hybrid. I just would remind everyone that we have our first check-in in terms of looking at our metrics. That will happen on October 22nd with a potential start of October 27th for elementary. If you recall, or you've been reading along the way, the state has prioritized getting in our elementary students first. So that is why we started with our elementary students. We will have a middle school, high school check-in on November 25th with a potential start of November 30th. And then beginning on September 28th, on each Monday, the Watertown metrics in terms of COVID-19 and where we're at with the virus will be displayed on the Watertown Public Schools website. So if trends in the data hold steady as they are right now, we will move to the hybrid for elementary on October 27th and the secondary on November 30th. So that is our target goals for that. In terms of metrics for moving to hybrid, there's two common approaches for determining when we can go into the in-person hybrid, or when we were even thinking about how we should start. One of them is the daily incident rate. Anything less than 4 per 100,000 is considered to be either green or unshaded by the state. Watertown is currently at 1.29 per 100,000. And the positivity rate, which means the amount of people who test positive on COVID-19 tests, if that's less than 5%, that's a good indication. And right now, Watertown is currently at 0.31%. I just want to comment on that second. I'm sure that people are well aware of this, but it's interesting because that low positivity rate means that we're testing a lot of people. So I know there's a lot of concern around asymptomatic individuals, or, are we testing everyone that should be tested? That's why that number is so important, because that means that, yes, you're catching a lot of people in that testing to determine that they don't have COVID-19. Additionally, we will always consider the Middlesex and Suffolk County data as well. Obviously, I have the map down here, and you'll see that Watertown. I don't know why we don't actually have our name on our little chunk here, but we're green. We're surrounded by Belmont that's unshaded, but Waltham is yellow. Most of the areas around us are currently green with some yellow. But if it comes on October 22nd that we're surrounded by red, for example, that would be an indication that maybe we need to think a little bit before we reopen. So you have to look at the larger picture as well. But I think it's really encouraging to see how well Watertown is doing in terms of positivity rates. And then I just wanted to once again apprise the community of the fact that you'll hear more about this later in the Buildings and Grounds report. We did our HVAC assessment. One of the things that we want to make sure is our windows have screens on them. We've had windows without screens forever, but we want to keep them open more frequently, especially in the fall. And as we know, that's when insects might be coming in. So less distractions, more screens would be great. We are in the process of purchasing 308 air purifiers. So ideally, by the time that we move into our hybrid for all of our levels, we'll have actually air purifiers in our rooms. It is not necessary in most of our rooms, but we do think this is an excellent added layer for our staff and our students. Our univents, which are our ventilation systems, will be left on 24/7, which will allow for a lot of circulation of air throughout the day and the evening. Anytime that we can, we'll use MERV 13 filters and MERV 8 whenever it's best for ventilation. We'll talk more about that in the report for the Buildings and Grounds. We will begin our COVID testing in the first week of October. I have a feeling we might be one of the very first districts that are actually implementing COVID testing for staff. And hopefully we're looking for opportunities to even increase that in the future when saliva pool testing becomes far more readily available, even for students. But right now, let's start with our staff. All of our PPE has been procured. Students and staff will have masks, and staff additionally will have whatever shields and other PPE that is necessary to start the year. So I just wanted to say, as reminders, we have upcoming community forums. I'm just in a groove at this point in time, every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Feel free to join us. I'll send out the Zoom links as well and put them on the website. Our school nutrition department continues to distribute food through December 31st for any family. It's free, and we certainly would encourage everyone to take advantage of that. A reminder that all of our students are required to have flu vaccinations by December 31st, unless there's a medical reason for not doing that or a religious reason as well. So those are two things that would exempt you, but that is a new requirement from the Mass DPH. Parents, please remember that once we start that you need to screen your children for COVID-19 symptoms before sending them to school. And I put this as just a big point of statement. High school students, if you're listening, or parents of high school students, please make sure that you are exercising good judgment when you are in groups of students. Your friends, always wear a mask. We have seen a spate of incidences in Dover, Sherborne, Lincoln, Sudbury, Dedham, Windham, New Hampshire, where some of our high school students have gathered and haven't been wearing masks, and we've had incidences of COVID-19. So a lot of this depends on all of us doing the right thing to get back into school. So I just ask, please think when you're with your friends to wear a mask. And as I said before, we're all set with our PPE. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. McGinnis, who's going to talk a little bit about our learning and support.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Galton. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect. I switched from my earbuds. I wasn't sure. Before I begin to share how we're supporting our staff and our parents and caregivers, I just want to say a big thank you to our school committee members and to our parents and caregivers for, understanding and being flexible, and most importantly, trusting our teachers and our staff to continue to hold our students or your children's best interests close as we navigate through these truly historic times. And I've said it before at a school committee meeting, and it's really important that this is the biggest challenge, adaptive challenge, in the history of public education. And I also want to mention that we're very proud of our principals for their steadfast leadership, and they're often placing their own personal needs on the back burner for the good of their schools throughout this summer. Our coordinators have come back to school this year too, rolling up their sleeves and helping teachers prioritize and plan our curriculum. And we're also so proud, of course, of our teachers, our mental health folks also in the schools, and our support staff. And by support staff, there's so many people involved in this work, preparing and during these 13 days and during the summer. And so from our support staff, what I'm talking about is our instructional assistants in the classrooms to our custodians who are preparing our building safely. From our administrative assistants who certainly are supporting DD&I at the district offices, but also at the schools, to our folks that are preparing breakfasts and lunches to send home with many, many, many Watertown families. We have all hands on deck, and I'm proud to be a part of this as we support our teachers who are on the front line to make sure that our students come back to a very welcoming and safe environment. So thank you to all of you all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how, could you please forward to the next slide?
I can. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries.
Let me just ask a quick question. Lindsay, you have your hand up. Is something now, or did you want to wait?
It's not specifically related to learning support stuff. It was actually about the public forums. My only question was, are we posting any slides or things that are shared at public forums, like after they happen, to the same spot where you can see that information? I'm just wondering if people can't come, if there's any information that's shared that they might be able to access later on in an asynchronous environment.
Yeah, the community forums that.
Yeah, that Dr. Galton was talking about.
So I haven't recorded the last couple of them, but I can start that again and just post the recordings. We're not slide driven at this point in time. It's really a lot of questions and answers, and lots of really good questions and answers. So to your point, yes.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really good idea to start posting those after they're done as a recording.
Thank you.
And we'll come back and if school committee members or the public have questions, as soon as Dr. McGinnis finishes, we'll come back.
Thanks.
Sounds good. So in just a moment, Dr. Galston, I'll ask you to click on that link. But before you do, there's 5 areas that we're using as a framework to support the professional learning and development and support for all of the health and PPE going forward. And the most important one is social emotional wellness or well-being of our staff and then of our students. So it's a focus area during these 13 days over the summer and throughout the whole school year. And I'm going to share a little bit on that in a future slide. Educational technology, as you well know, is the only way that we're going to be able to communicate well and make learning happen these first few weeks before our kids come back in a hybrid situation. Instructional planning as always, because it's shifted from being in district or in classrooms to remote and hybrid. So we have a lot of professional learning around that. And of course, we have to differentiate the needs because our students are always in varying places from time to time. And we have to first assess where they are and then differentiate. So we're focusing on that. And finally, how do we engage all of our students? On all of the surveys we did, parent, student, and staff back in the spring, what was very clear is, how do we sustain student engagement, motivation, all of that? So we've done a lot of research. We've had task force over the summer. And we've had teachers actually leading some professional development during these 13 days around that as well. So if I can ask you, Dr. Galston, can you please click on the WPS Professional Learning? Thank you. And in there, this is just a letter to staff, which gives the school committee just some more information about sort of the framework we're using. But if you can click on the 13 days, opening 13 days. And the reason I want to share this, it's a vast document, but you can see at the very top, each school is listed and there's a hyperlink to each school so that their schedule is embedded in the whole district schedule. So teachers avail themselves to that to see what's happening each day because there's a lot going on. And as you go down and you scroll, if you can push that up a little bit, you'll see each day on there. And there's 2 important days that I just want to mention among all of the 13 days. And those dates are September 8th and September 16th. And on September 8th, we had our Equity and Inclusion Part 1 day, where we had our equity leadership team leading the work on wonderful, important and meaningful discussions around race in our schools. We did some reading of good literature, and we had some robust conversations. Excuse me. That day on the 8th, I'm going to show you a slide coming up with the feedback from the teachers on that, but it was really, heartful and important in our work. This week on Wednesday, the 16th, we're going to do part 2. We actually have students involved in that, leading teachers and staff members through some more of this work, including a pledge that is student developed that we will share at a later school committee meeting that's going to be shared with the entire staff on Wednesday. So we're really excited about that. And then on Wednesday also at the end of the day for inspirational purposes, we had started our school year with a mindfulness presenter, reminding teachers we need to take care of ourselves in this hard times. And so we're going to have this inspirational speaker on Wednesday after our equity day, who happens to be a Peloton instructor, for those of you who might know about Peloton, who used to be a principal and used to be a teacher. And now that Peloton has gone from classes to online, she's going to share her experiences of how to make vibrant online communities for students. So that's on Wednesday as well. And if you could go back to the other slides, please.
I can.
Thank you. So I mentioned equity inclusion part 1 on September 8th, and this is the last slide, and it's the overall feedback from all of the staff. There's 323 responses there, and it was, in general, did these sessions support my continued growth as an anti-racist educator? Because we had spent the whole day talking about that, learning about it. And as you can see there, 92% of the staff replied with either a 4 or a 5 of that experience, which is pretty darn high, and nearly 60% were a 5. So again, whenever we do work that is, this meaningful, it's really good to get this positive feedback. And at a later date in the fall, I'll give you much more as we go through these days. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
All right, so I just did some highlights because there is so much that's happening. I did mention in June or July over the summer at a school committee meeting that we had 2 full days of professional development after the school year. So teachers actually came back, spent 2 days, over 100 staff members on a variety of topics that I'll show you in a future slide. A couple of the highlights of the 100 days, of the June Institute days. One is all 6 to 12, with a focus on literacy, all 6 to 12 English language arts teachers did a study with an author of a book called A Novel Approach, which is an approach that they're working, which blends the instruction of ELA and small groups of students trying to make more individualized learning that we're going to be using across middle school and high school. And the second one was our literacy coordinator and coaches went to the Columbia University's Teachers College week-long K-8 writing units conference, which is phenomenal. So they have been offering, both groups have been offering PD during these 13 days. Also to support teachers at the middle school, we created a stipend for curriculum specialists in each of the 4 core areas of ELA, math, science, and social studies to work closely with the principal, the coordinators, and the coaches. Our elementary reading specialist took a course engaging struggling readers through remote instruction. And what's important about it is a group of them took it. So there was a cohort. So there's lots of building capacity to, train others and work together in the district this year. And with the goal of supporting teachers and increasing our impact on distance learning, we're reading this book. It's not even a reading as much as it's useful. It's very pragmatic, very practical. It's called the Distance Learning Playbook, and you don't need to click on it now, but folks can at their leisure. But it's a wonderful book. The elementary teachers will all be getting it. All of the curriculum coordinators have it and are using it in their departments as well, and then some other areas. But it's an excellent resource for the work that we're doing right now. And then another example is our high school science and then math departments created and are using this document that, Dr. Galson, can you click on that? What shifts do we need to make from our face-to-face to digital? And it's an outstanding way to frame the work. Hard for me to see that slide. One second. I'm going to pull up my own for just a second. All right, I don't have it in front of me. Basically, it's a great way to frame the work from the beginning of the school year to the middle to the end, to have some consistency across classrooms. Teachers, what they've done is, started with that question, what shifts do we need to make? And then they have this framework, and at the bottom of this document is what teachers in these 2 departments are adding to the work. So as they meet collectively in collaborative groups, whether it's department meeting or grade level or course level, they're adding to the work. This is just another example of some of the good consistency of practices that are happening. Back to the slides, please.
Yes.
It's hard not to be able to control the slides, I'm noticing. This isn't for, I know it's only a font 14 or something. I just wanted you to see, this is just one day, the elementary sessions in the June Institute, just to give you an idea of all the sessions that were offered. And Rashmi Primpakar, who you're gonna meet in just a moment, heads our ed tech unit, and she has made sure that we had this categorized for teachers in the structure of the 5 areas of professional development focus that was on the very first slide. And they're recorded sessions, so teacher at their leisure, they can go back and say, I'm interested in something about differentiation, and they'll find one on there that might be of interest. So we're documenting, categorizing all of this for the future. So this is the elementary session, and then the next slide is just secondary, a little bit different topics, but just it shows you what teachers were doing with their free time at the beginning of the summer in June in preparation for teaching this fall. And the next slide. One other really important part of the summer work, again, it was a 4-week online course at Harvard that 28 of our teachers, principals, and curriculum coordinators enrolled in. And did various projects, really, really rich projects, all collaborative projects. So there was at least 2 people in them. Some examples are at the high school, Joel, our new principal, along with 2 of our teachers, Suzanne and Sadie, worked on a professional development session that they gave at the very beginning of the school year to all of the high school teachers. It's best practices that they want to use at the high school for virtual learning. Kelly Grace, Stephanie, and Principal Moulton worked on building consistency across the elementary school. So all grades 3 to 5 teachers met together during these 13 days to learn more about the implementation of Google Classroom and how we can, use what we learned in the remote learning in the spring and make it much stronger and richer. So we appreciate that. And then a couple of coordinators, Kate Phillipson and Rashmi, they're holding some wonderful parent, family, caregiver workshops with interpreters at it, with translated documents, etc. They had started it last spring, and now they have an even more robust one that they'll be sharing. And I believe Rashmi will be talking about it in just a minute. But they developed that during this Harvard course as well. And Laura and Lindsay then also created a best practices session, and it's called Developing and Maintaining Relationships with Students in the Virtual Environment. So we went from instruction to relationships. And then finally, Deb Opar and Elizabeth Kaplan, our K to 7 coordinators, are working with all the elementary teachers and the coaches to make the professional development structures at the elementary level, because it's very important to make sure there's fluidity between grade levels and with the coaching sessions. So that's pretty great. And then finally, I mentioned earlier on September 8th and September 16th, our equity leaders are at it again, making sure that we have a common knowledge and understanding of racism, definitions, anti-racism, and what does anti-racist teaching look like. This is just a kickoff, and it's also building on the last 2 years and all of our work we have done with facing history and ourselves. We're continuing that work, and this team is behind a lot of the planning on that. And the next slide, please. And I'd like to introduce Rashmi, who is one of the panelists here tonight, and she's done a terrific job pulling together a lot of the work that our teachers and our coordinators and our principals have been doing into one electronic document or a web page. She's going to talk about some of the EdTech learning and support for staff, and then she's going to talk about the EdTech learning and support for our families and our caregivers. Rashmi?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. McGuinness. Thank you, school committee members, principals, families, Dr. Galston. It's an honor to be able to work in this environment and come up with such amazing work products. This sort of work for the EdTech for All website came through the Harvard course, so it's part of the project. The website, Dr. Galston, if I could request you to please click on the link. Thank you. So the website hosts multiple resources. There are 108 faculty PD sessions, as Dr. McGuinness talked about. Those are the faculty presentations that are hosted in a resource hub. And Dr. Galston, if you could click on the EdTech tutorials, which is the tab on top, that's where the database is hosted. Right now, the database is accessible to all the Watertown Public School faculty. And we also have resources for the faculty, including certain guides for platforms such as Google Classroom, Seesaw, and EdTech tools such as Flipgrid and Pear Deck, and so on and so forth. So it has around 108 PD sessions. We also hosted 41, if we go back to the presentation, Dr. Galston, thank you. We have around 41 EdTech for All PD sessions that are currently running during the WPS opening days. And they are wonderful because the feedback is overwhelmingly positive. We have a 4 to 5 sort of feedback rating for each of the session. That amounts to around 17 hours of professional learning for all the schools, elementary, middle, and high schools. And all faculties, it's offered to all faculty pre-K-12. So we have close to 4,000 responses in our feedback form. And in addition to that, next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Galston.
I'm trying.
For families, we have family resource page, which is linked here. It has resources for families, which again address platforms. We have guides and certain bilingual resources that are translated with our wonderful translators in Spanish and Portuguese that are hosted here. We also have a resource guide, which will appear in just a second. Yep, that's the one, which sort of gives you guidelines and links to very specific resources, including troubleshooting tips for Chromebooks or about Google Classroom, about Seesaw and the different applications. So that's for the parents. We will be hosting bi-weekly school-based family support sessions with the school leadership going forward in the phase 2, which is from September 17th. And we'll also have the bilingual, which is the Spanish and the Portuguese ones, happening bi-weekly. So that's sort of the family parent support that will be put in place, in addition to the regular EdTech hours, which will be drop-in sessions. So that's pretty much it. We are working on this and we look forward to the feedback. So back to Dr. McGuinness. Thank you.
And I'm just going to open it for any questions that you might have. Rashmi or I could answer, or Dr. Goldstein. Having heard none, Dr. Goldstein.
No, I don't think we can hear you, Teresa.
Oh,
I heard you say that you would love to answer questions. Is that what I heard?
I would love to. Answer anything better. Can you hear me now?
I'm gonna turn off the slideshow so we can see everybody. How does that sound?
Right. Well, thank you for that presentation. And thank you to, for all the work that's been done over the summer and into the fall in these 13 days. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the amount of effort and kind of work that teachers and principals and curriculum coordinators, everybody has done in terms of getting ready for the fall. So thank you very much for that. So let me see if there are some questions from school committee members, and then if anybody from the public would also like to ask a question, particularly related to the opening update, that would be fine as well. Lindsay, you have your hand up.
I always do. I just wanted to say, I'm really impressed with the, obviously the work that was done, since the summer and into now, but also I just really appreciate that we've already got plans and structures in place to support parents along the way. I think it's something that, I've heard a lot that people want, and I'm just so impressed, that we kind of have a plan for that. We've got resources already up and running. I just think it's so important for us to, get that information out in the schedule, and all of us to be talking about the availability of this so that parents, have access to that support. But, there's at least a dozen ideas here that I'd like to bring back to work with the people I work with. So nice job, guys.
Right. Thanks, Lindsay. Other questions from the school committee on the update? I have one, if I could follow up. You mentioned, Dr. Golson, you mentioned about COVID testing for staff. Can you say a little bit more about how that might happen? I think you're still in the midst of kind of working on that, but how that might happen and what will be the process?
Yep. So we are we're actually part of a collaborative of several different districts that are pursuing COVID testing for staff. We, I think given our size and, closeness to the Broad Institute, we've been trying to work directly with the Broad Institute to try to launch testing. And so at this point in time, we will hoping to contract out with the company that kind of oversees the whole process. But in essence, what it is working with our nursing staff. So we have 2 nurses that are going to help us out. It's self-administered sampling. So, staff will come, they'll take a swab, they'll collect the sample, they'll put it in a vial, seal it up, give it to the nurse, who will then log it. And then it gets sent to the Broad Institute, who will test it. And we should have the results the next day. So we've guaranteed, as long as we get it to them in the same day, we'll have the results the next day. Our goal is to do surveillance testing. We'll start with our staff that are coming in with the high need students or specialized populations. And then once we go to hybrid, then we will add the rest of the staff in. It's all, again, we've written this into grants. There's a finite amount of funding, so we're starting with those. Whenever you're working with students is when we're going to test you. So, like I said, I think, and thank you to Heidi Perkins. She's been really instrumental in helping us to get this moving and work with our vendors to ensure that we're ready to go. She actually has prepared an RFP to get permanent ongoing testing as well. So I just wanted to thank Heidi for that. So we're very excited to start. And like I said before, I think we'll end up being one of the first districts to launch staff testing.
So was it like voluntary, or
Yep.
how would it be determined?
Yep.
If anyone wants to do it, they can do it?
Yes. Yeah, I surveyed staff. I had about 75% that they wanted to be tested, about 15% that wanted more information, and then 10% who were not interested. So, and it's once a week.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from school committee members? Questions or comments? Okay. What about any attendees? Anyone from the public have a question related to the opening?
There is a question in the chat,
A question in the Q&A.
Q&A, sorry.
Yep. I don't know, Joel, do you have the answer about the community service? I don't have the answer on that one. I don't know if you do either, but the question is the high school requirement of 30 hours community service going to change since COVID has affected opportunities to volunteer?
Yeah, so we're looking at modifying that for a 1 year for students that, so if a student is right up against it and they're needing to graduate and that's holding them back, obviously we're going to have to make an exception because we can't have students out and about where they used to be. We're gonna be following up with those students that are right up against those hours. There are still some opportunities we've looked at, and Ms. Honig is in charge of looking at those, and so we'll be reaching out to kids. But if your specific student is lacking in hours, please have them reach out to their guidance counselor and we can discuss.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
I think there was another question in the Q&A, John, that would be good for parents to hear, which is, who would we send the signed WPS Chromebook agreement to? And Ms. Moulton said, please bring it to materials pickup, but where can that be found for families that might be listening right now? Where's the agreement found?
Lily, wait a minute.
On the website.
I don't see a question. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So in the Q&A, we've been answering questions as we go. Principals have been answering, so the point of the Q&A is if we can get an answer pretty quickly, we just answer it.
Okay.
So the question, I think Lily wanted to bring it up so that everybody knows that if you have a Chromebook agreement, when you come to pick up your Chromebook, you turn in your paperwork. So.
We will also have it at the materials pickup because it's a requirement to sign it before we give you a Chromebook. So it's just basically an added bonus in terms of speeding up the process if you bring the completed form with you, but it's not necessary. We will have the forms there.
Yep, as will we. And also they were mailed out to all families this morning, and I believe they were attached to my newsletter that I sent home yesterday.
Okay.
The form is also posted on the website in the 1:1 initiatives, just in case.
And there was a question about how long the COVID testing program will run.
So it will depend on our continued grant funding. I think that we're very optimistic that there'll be another round of stimulus funding that should be coming from our friends in Washington, and that we will continue through. I think, at this point, definitely through the end of the calendar year, but we would like to continue that through as far as we can. So I'm very committed to that. I'd like to say that, as I said, Heidi is also becoming an expert in COVID testing. But our ideally, I think that the saliva pool testing, which is far less expensive and far easier just for a screen, should become more prevalent and readily available. So we'll hopefully be able to, defray some of the cost and then use the PCR testing, which is what we're doing now, for if somebody's symptomatic or if there's any positive from that pool sampling. So that's our goal. So optimistically, we'll be able to do that through the course of the year, but definitely for sure through the calendar year.
Okay. Anything, any other, I didn't realize the Q and A, some of those are being answered, so.
Yep.
Anything else, Kathy, that needs to be brought up, or?
Yeah, the Chrome, so the question about can you use your own Chromebook? For the most part, you can. We are asking that everybody picks up a Chromebook because there are specific programs that will be on our Chromebooks that students may need to access. So, you know, 90% of the, I don't know, I shouldn't even say 90% of the time. Most of the time, using your own device is fine, but there will be times where we're going to want you to have your Chromebook. So keep it as the spare for when your device goes down and you need to have that Chromebook.
Right. Okay. I want to move along, and we've got some other agenda items. Moving to the action items, we have a couple of subcommittee reports. The first one is the policy subcommittee, which has a couple of different agenda items for discussion, but we'll start off first, I think, with the report from the chair, Lily, on the kind of update on the minutes from the meeting.
Sure. So we had actually two policy subcommittee meetings. We started one and then had to continue it due to having a double booked athletics meeting. Just a general overview, we covered a couple of different things. We covered first the handbooks, and all of the handbooks for the district pretty much stayed the same with the exception of the high school handbook, which we will go over, I think, some of the quick changes that were there. There were not many substantive changes, but there were a few that are particularly important. Specifically, one that for, during COVID times, we're not going to be hosting the SATs or large scale testing at WHS. And then there was a kind of unique situation where a cohort of, and Joel, please correct me if I get the numbers wrong here, I believe 25 or so sophomores were unable to be slotted into electives. So they will be allowed to take study halls, which is not the general norm. This will not affect their graduation. And again, it's affecting a relatively small number of students. We clarified what an excused absence actually is. And then we struck the term headmaster from throughout the handbook. Joel, I don't know if you want to chime in on any of the other substantive changes there.
The new first page of the handbook is a translation statement rather than a welcome letter, and then the welcome letter follows.
Excellent. Any questions on that?
Lily, why don't you just do kind of overview on your minutes so we can approve that, and then we'll go back to the individual items.
Sure. So I'll just finish the whole report. So then we looked over the COVID addendum, which the district has developed, which will be included in all handbooks. This clarified a lot of the different concerns that have come out in the community, including the fact that face masks will be required throughout all people who are in our schools, and that we will be providing disposable masks if needed. As Dr. Galton just spoke to, we are providing testing, and they're currently looking into testing symptomatic students and staff. That is still an ongoing process. We had a lot of conversation on attendance. We ended our first meeting on the topic and then had to pick it back up at meeting number 2. Really looking at some of the issues that parents had with concerns about students having struggles with staying on Zooms for extended lengths of time, and or concerns about, there was, again, a couple of pieces in the news regarding DCF being called on parents whose students weren't showing up to Zooms. So we wanted to really clarify and make sure that parents in Watertown understood the processes that would be followed by Watertown Public Schools regarding these types of concerns. Dr. Galdston and Ms. Damaris kind of made it very clear that we're going to create a flow chart, and we're going to really help parents understand that, no, it's not kind of a gotcha type of a thing. It's really, we're there to support students and families in remote learning, and that our goal is to engage as many students as possible, as often as possible. And if students are not engaged, it is the responsibility of the school to really help them re-engage. So talking about how to support families in doing so as much as possible. then we had to bring up the flu mandate. Again, by December 31st, families are required to have their child vaccinated, obviously with the exception of medical or religious reasons. And that, I think, hopefully, will be widespread, made clear. I want to be clear that as far as I know, and Mr. Sedaris, you might know a little bit about this, the town is providing some flu clinics, and hopefully we'll be able to help push out the information on that. But the town has often had flu clinics for people to participate in. We tabled a discussion. One of the topics that we were supposed to talk about was teachers' children coming in, meaning that Watertown Public Schools educators whose children might be remote learning in their home districts and therefore causing a childcare concern, should we go back to the hybrid model? That is a topic that is still being explored by the district. So we have tabled that discussion to be continued at a later time. And again, going back to the absences discussion, just looking at basically how we're going to be taking attendance and the fact that yes, attendance will be taken both for in-person and remote learning. And then again, kind of giving families a really good sense of how we are going to kind of work with families to encourage and support students with their remote education. And then finally, we had a quick 2-second update on the Title IX discussion, which is looking at harassment policies. The federal government made some changes to this. We are decided to table that discussion as well, pending more legal discussion, and we are going to have an update on that whenever we are told that we have the ability to do so. And then to clarify, one of the other kind of big concerns that came up in the community, as well as something that was talked about briefly before, there is no recording of Zoom or Meet or Google Meets lessons where students are present, meaning that we should not have parents recording lessons, we should not have students recording lessons, we should not have staff recording lessons. It's mass law that you have to have a two-party consent, meaning that both people need to be aware of and consent to being recording, which we cannot do. So there should not be any recording of any sort of classes. And that is incredibly important that I think families hear. So that does mean that you should not encourage your student to take out their phone and record the class, and that parents should not be recording the class as well. And then finally, we looked at MASC policy EBC-S, which is a policy that basically, the purpose of that is to give Dr. Galdston the ability to make real-time decisions regarding policy needs as necessitated by COVID-19 circumstances. And it allows for Dr. Galdston to be a little bit more reactive without going through the school committee on unnecessary policy changes as they might come up. So we did make a recommendation by a vote of 3-0 to recommend the inclusion of that policy for specifically school year 2020-21 as and potentially longer if needed. So yeah, that was the policy update. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Lily. Any questions on the update? We'll come back to a couple votes in a moment. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Lindsay,
I'm using my raise the hand feature.
sorry.
That's okay. My question is specifically about the recording of classes. Are teachers able to record a presentation if student voices and faces are not part of that recording, and then turn off the recording once kids are participating?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because the way that it's worded may make parents or students confused about when a teacher is recording or not, if they're recording it for sort of absent students or to save for later. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, if you're doing a mini lesson and there's, and especially if we have students who are quarantined, et cetera. But that being said, even if you're doing that, you have to let your families and your students know that that is happening. You can't just do it without letting people know. But absolutely, and quite frankly, you could, and we talked about this. I mean, there are strange, instances where you might end up not during this, but you might record a class, but you would have to do consents and you would have to do permissions and you'd have to talk about why you're doing it. But the recording a mini lesson, you would have to let everybody know in advance that that's what you're doing. But it's the let me just tape the whole entire 45 minutes and then send it out to all of the kids. You can't do that. And same thing for parents. You can't oh, that's a great lesson. I wish I could go back to it. No, you can't do that either. So
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions on the report? Okay, is there a motion to approve the report? So moved. There's a
Second.
Second.
Discussion, roll call. Amy?
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
Lily Reed,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes.
No.
Amy?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, it passes. For one item, the first item on the agenda was the school handbooks. I think you talked already about that a little bit, Lily, particularly with respect to the high school, where there was some changes there. I take it then there were no other kind of substantive changes in the others?
no, we did a lot of name changes and, dates and calendars but nothing policy driven. So yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the handbooks? So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? So roll call. Amy? Amy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my thing says it's unstable, my internet. Am I doing another roll call?
Yes.
All right, everybody's frozen. Lily Reed,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes. Amy Donahue?
Yes.
Okay. And then next item was the COVID-19 handbook addendum, which again, Lily, you talked a little bit about. I will say it's a fairly lengthy document.
Yeah.
It's like 20 pages or so. 15 pages, which I think has a lot of important information in it. That how will that, is that posted on the website? That's part of the handbook?
Yes. Well, once you approve it, then we will put together handbook part 2, and this will be part of handbook part 2, which is that larger district-wide one that has all the policies, and then this will be like an attachment to that.
Okay.
And people will have to sign off on having gotten the addendum. So this is, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Trust me, the subcommittee did.
Right.
But basically, it's important for people to know this goes over the COVID-19 protocols in terms of, what happens when you should stay home, what you should do if you think you have COVID-19, what we will do if somebody has COVID-19, how you prevent COVID-19, meaning wearing your mask and 6 feet of distance and washing your hands, and all of that is in here. Very important for families to go over. I think that the most critical piece here, we're going to say it 50 times. If you're sick, don't come to school. Just end of that. That's the most important thing. No temptation of coming into school. Hold on 1 second. You keep. Oh, we're good. Okay, I'll lock it and alarm. Yes.
A momentary pause.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right.
Fabulous. So once again, don't come to school if you're not feeling well. That's for students and staff. Then it talks a lot about the symptoms, and then again the protocols. Yes, it's 26 pages. Sorry. Then sorry, went too fast. Then there's a whole section on school operations, like visitors and volunteers, entries and exits, school events, cleaning and disinfecting, personal hygiene, and on and on and on. So what I would highly suggest, and then we put the protocol, for etiquette online in here as well. This is a very important document, and I'll send it out separately to families just to highlight the importance of this, as well as including it in the handbook part 2. But if you're going to read anything, read this.
Well, and I might suggest too, I think on the front page of the website, there
Yep.
are some kind of COVID-related areas, that area there that this could go as a link to that as well.
Yes. Yeah, one thing we didn't add, and I just haven't gotten to it, is we also have like a communication tree for if you have a bunch of questions, like who do you go to within your building related to COVID-19 and operating in the bridge to hybrid. So we'll add that as well.
Okay. So any questions, Mark?
Yes, when we give out our Chromebooks, let's say,
Mhm.
we have to sign for them. Is this a document that they should also sign for so that nobody can say that they didn't get it?
That's a very good idea. So, because part of the process is meeting with the nurse. So this could just be part of that discussion. Here's your copy and sign off on it. Yep.
I think that would be important to make sure that everybody, has this document and you know that you gave it to them.
Yep. Yes. In addition to the normal handbook sign off. I like it. Thank you.
Okay. I think we have to keep speaking up here.
We gotta
Is it me too, or just you guys?
Well, certainly.
It's just Mark and John are hard to hear.
I don't know. We're the same distance from the owl, but it doesn't. It's not blinking at us or whatever. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions on that? Let's ask for a motion then to approve the COVID.
So moved.
Second. Any other questions? Roll call, Amy?
Lily Reed,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes. Amy Donahue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's approved. Next, we had the two policies, which would be additions to our policy handbook. Lily mentioned those already, EBC-S, and then which is on the COVID-related issues, which basically is kind of empowering the superintendent to act in certain circumstances without necessarily having to go to the school committee. And then the other was JLCB immunizations.
Yeah, that was just to add the Mass Department of Health recommendation, mandate on the flu vaccination. So it's just a note at the bottom.
Yep.
I mean, both of these came from MASC, the Association of School Committees.
Yep.
As recommendations for us to consider. So this is, we do, for approval of these requires 2 meetings. So this is the first reading. And it will be on our agenda at the next meeting for actual vote. But if anyone has a question at this point, they can ask that. And we will bring it up again at the next meeting. Any questions at this stage? Okay. Next up would be the athletic subcommittee. And turn it over to the chair, Amy.
Yes. Okay. Hopefully my computer stays on. So the meeting of the athletic subcommittee met on Wednesday, September 2nd at 5 p.m. Just after the first policy meeting. Our athletic director, Ryan Murphy, read the Middlesex League Superintendent's recommendations, which I can briefly go through. We recognize that outdoor physical sports is very important for our students. So therefore, we are offering soccer, field hockey, cross country, and golf to all of our students this fall. Those sports will begin on September 21st, with golf beginning on September 28th. Sports will be limited to 10 competitions. At this point, we are thinking that most likely those competitions will be held on Saturdays and Sundays, and we are not sure of times at this point. Volleyball, because it's an indoor sport, we agreed that that will happen in our fall 2 season, along with football, cheer, and swimming. Due to the challenges related to COVID-19, we need to limit the number of fans that can attend competitions. So at this time, it's going to be limited to 1 immediate family member. And there'll be a need to maybe possibly allocate some additional funds to allow for more safety in our outdoor fall sports season. We are not going to be able to provide transportation, so parents and caregivers are going to be responsible for transportation to the competitions. I guess Lastly, we are going to have middle school athletics, but it will be considered intramural activities. And we recommended that the athletic fee maintain the same for the school year. And there was a vote 3-0 that we would make a recommendation to the full school committee to accept this proposal set by the superintendent and athletic director for the fall 2020 sports season. And currently now registration is opened online for fall 2020 athletics.
Okay.
Is there any questions, comments?
Questions on the report?
Oh.
Seeing
Say
none,
it
let's have a vote on the report and then we'll go to the recommendation.
Okay.
Roll call.
Lily
Sorry,
Reed,
you have to do these roll calls, so, sorry.
Yes. Yes.
sorry, I'm getting back sound. Lily Reed, did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes. Amy Donahue?
Yes.
Okay. And so the motion was, recommendation was made to approve the fall sports schedule. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions on anything needs to be elaborated on?
I had asked a question of Ryan, and I think Ryan's on the call. We did have, a concern about cross-country masking. And that was, would athletes be required to wear masks while running? And the MIA policy says that they're not, but that seems to contradict the Watertown town mandate on masking. And I was just kind of curious if we had gotten an update on that, Ryan.
I don't think Ryan, is Ryan here?
Yep, he's here.
Oh, he is. Okay, I don't see you. Sorry, Ryan.
Hold on. Let me move him in to become a panelist. Hold on. Here he comes. And
Did have his
here's-
hand up.
Yes, here's Mr. Murphy. Ryan, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I'm here. Just like that, I appeared. So Larry from the Board of Health, we have a meeting with him. There's a meeting on Wednesday, and I'm hoping to get more clarity on that. That's a concern as mine as well. The MIA rules, as you said, do say they can take their mask off after the race starts and then put it up if someone gets close to them. But the Watertown rules state that you have to wear a mask at all times. So I'm honestly not sure, but I'm hoping to have that clarity by Wednesday. It will be my preference, hopefully, to be able to take the mask off while you're running, keep it down around your neck, and then put it back up when needed. But I'll keep everybody posted on that, and I'll hope to know by Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Other questions or comments?
So
I just had a
Ryan,
comment.
Kendra?
Oh, I just wanted to, Ryan's done an incredible job and working really hard to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and have a lot of conversations to make this happen. I really appreciate what you've been doing, Ryan. And I really like that the Middlesex League is working together on this, really following MIA guidelines, working together to make sure that there's an experience for all kids in that league. So thanks so much for your work. And I really think that you put together a plan that is safe and is going to give our student athletes an opportunity to participate in sports, which I think is really important. So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You take that from the whole school committee. I think you've done a great job in, very difficult situation. So thank you very much for.
Thank you.
I know it's not over. We still got to figure out more seasons, but
Keep us busy, that's for sure.
you can do it.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just have a quick clarifying question when it comes to the registrations that are now out. Of several parents have asked, due to COVID-19, their spring physicals were canceled. So they've now scheduled them for the fall. What is okay and not okay for if a parent had said to you, I have a date scheduled for September 28th for a physical, but the athletics had started, or tryouts are September 21st. Are you allowing that leeway, or is it not, is it have to be done by tryouts?
This has been a very common question, and I wish I had a different answer than what I have. But unfortunately, everyone's physical has to be renewed every 13 months, and there can't be any exceptions, especially this year due to COVID. With that being said, anyone who can't find a physical, have them email me directly. And there's a couple places that we've had kids that weren't able to get their physicals until March, and we've been able to get them an appointment as early as September 15th. So we'll work with everyone to try and find them a place to get a physical, but we can't excuse anyone who doesn't have one up to date. And we're doing the best we can to get as many people we can seen as fast as possible.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Ryan. Any other questions? Okay, the motion's on the floor to approve
I don't see any
all
more
sports
questions.
as recommended by the subcommittee. And if no other questions, roll call. Amy?
Sorry, I keep losing everybody.
What, you want to call the roll?
Trying, I think.
What's that?
Yeah, it's just.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, I can do it. I keep going in and out, sorry. Okay, Lily Reed,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
okay. Mark Sedaris,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
John Forbes.
Yes. Amy Donahue?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you again for all the work. Next item for action is the goals, 2020, 2021 academic goals for the superintendent and then for the school committee. And again, these are goals that we've had previous discussion about. At the last school committee, we went through these as well briefly, just to put them out there for the public to see. And ask Dr. Dawson to just kind of summarize the goals that she has, and then we'll look at ours as well, and both those. Dr. Dawson.
Excellent, thank you. So as I reviewed the last time, my first goal is around student learning, and really it's about building the bridge to return. You know, we are working on creating that reopening plan, which we've done, and now we are implementing. So that is what we're doing right now. Goal 2 is about Watertown Public Schools budget. We are in the process of analyzing the Watertown Public Schools budget expenditures, my gosh, to ensure alignment with our mission, vision, and core values. We're going to enhance the clarity of the structure of the budget to more readily and easily analyze expenditures. So that's our second goal. We'll be working with consultants to help us do that work. We know that right now we're in you know, some economically challenging times. Fortunately, we've procured some grants from the federal government to help us out, but we want to make sure that we are doing best by our students with our budget moving forward. The third goal is around district improvement, building for the future elementary and high school projects. We are so excited to see the progress in our elementary schools, but as we start to work through those projects, we're really gearing up for our high school building project as well. So this will be a very big focus for the whole entire community, but certainly for me as the superintendent to make sure that we're moving through the process as well as we can. The fourth goal is around equity, systems and structures that ensure equity and anti-racism, engaging all WPS faculty and staff and students in embracing anti-bias and inclusive practices that promote equity and ensure all students feel valued in our WPS community and supported in their learning. You heard from Dr. McGinnis that we engaged in professional development and professional learning around being anti-racist educators. And she also mentioned the district-wide pledge that the students have put forth. So, you know, this is just part of our fabric, but it's a very important moment in our history, in essence, to really take this on as a school community. Goal 5, tiered systems of support, applying the principles of multi-tier systems of support to ensure that all students are provided the necessary supports for successful reentry, whether it be in person or remote. And then the 6th goal is district improvement, shared vision for district improvement, implementing the 3rd-year action plans for the 2019-22 to 2022 district improvement strategy, I would just like to say that from the feedback from the last meeting, we are working with the WEA and the school committee to develop Watertown specific measures of success that go well beyond MCAS. So that is something that we're working on currently. And those are my goals for this year.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Yeah, we've had some discussion on these, but any other questions today? Thank you, Dr. Dawson, for putting together a list of really good goals. Some building off previous years, but obviously dealing a lot with what the
yes.
return, reopening.
I have one goal.
kind of dominated a lot of things. That's
Yes.
for sure. Okay. Seeing none, no other questions. Is there a motion to approve the goals?
So moved.
Second, Amy.
Second.
Do a roll call.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
Tom Port,
Yes.
Lily Reed,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca.
Yes.
Donahue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then we also have some school committee goals. Again, we had had previous discussion on these. We had 4 goals, which basically kind of build from the goals that we had for the past year. The first goal was to increase school committee presence in each of the 5 school communities. And we're doing that by assigning liaison roles to us as individual school committee members to work with individual schools, to attend PTO, site councils, and serve as a communication tool. The second goal is to work with the superintendent on one of her goals, which is to provide information to the community annually on the progress and the accomplishments of the district. So that's something that we will work again with the superintendent. The third goal is to highlight specific Watertown Public School programs, events, and accomplishments for the community. So key actions there are to continue the summary that comes out after the school committee meetings. It goes out to the community, it goes out to parents and staff, and to develop a stronger social media presence. And then goal number 4 is to increase community engagement with and knowledge of the workings and accomplishments of each school community. And we will do that by kind of hosting or having one of our school committee meetings during this year come through individual schools. We did that last year for 2 of the schools, and then the pandemic hit and we weren't able to finish that up, but we'll try to do that.
John, you're on mute.
No, well,
What is that?
We lost the owl.
We lost the owl? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We couldn't hear John for the
Couldn't
last
hear
couple
John.
seconds.
So weird. Okay, well, the owl's back. So,
did you hear anything I said or nothing?
uh-oh.
We
We
heard
just
most
missed
of it,
the
just not the last,
last-
like 30 seconds we lost you, but now we can hear you again.
Okay, I wasn't looking. Well, we had the 4 goals I talked about. So I went through those, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's the point of it. So is there a motion to approve the school committee goals?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Amy, roll call, please.
David Stokes,
Yes.
John Ports,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Lily Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So,
She's Amy.
oh, I'm sorry, Amy. Sorry.
She said yes.
Okay.
That's okay, I said yes.
Sorry, I was looking at the next
I gotta
agenda.
take it when I can get on here.
Okay. Next up is the compensation adjustments for non-union personnel in 2020-21. Just by way of background, most of the employees in the school district are covered by collective bargaining agreements, teachers and others in the district. And so those compensation adjustments for those people are done through the collective bargaining process. And they're not all completed, but most of them are. They cover most of the teachers and some of the other in the WEA. We still have some contracts to work on. But then there are a group of employees that are non-union, or sometimes the term is referred to as non-aligned. And so each year, the superintendent makes a recommendation around compensation adjustment for those people. And the school committee has before it a proposal from the superintendent that has been discussed in executive session. And we're going to vote that at this point in time. And so she has proposed, and I'll just do a kind of summary of the proposed increases. She has proposed a cost of living adjustment of 2% for a number of different staff, district administrators, assistant superintendent, high school associate principal, administrative assistants in the district office, the food service and public buildings directors, IT technicians, grants and munis administrator, assistant directors, extended day program coordinators, and the principals of the Lowell and the Conniff elementary schools. So those are for a 2% increase. And then there is a few other positions that are identified for a market adjustment. So that includes a cost of living as well as an additional adjustment to kind of make them more consistent with the market for those positions. And though the average increase there is 3.75%. And those include for the director of finance and operations, assistant business manager, community education director, director of human resources, the middle school, and the Hosmer principal. And then finally, there are a number of hourly staff, about 21, in fact, hourly staff who will also receive a 2% increase. Those are people like door monitors and the lunch aides in that category. Total compensation for all these groups is $67,427. So that is the proposal before us for the adjustments, and this is for the fiscal year 2021, which started July 1st and goes until June 30th of next year. So are there questions on the proposal? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call please, Amy.
Lindsay Mosca,
Yes.
Mark Sideris,
Yes.
Kendra Foley,
Yes.
David Stokes,
Yes.
John Ports,
Yes.
Lily Reed.
Yes.
Amy Donahue.
Yes.
I do want to note that I want to acknowledge the superintendent. She's not getting an increase, not because she didn't deserve one, but I want to acknowledge her willingness to take a leadership position on this. If you recall back in the budget process several months ago, she chose to not request and not to ask for a salary increase. So I want to acknowledge that that's a willingness on her part to take that role. Okay. Next on the agenda would be the calendar of school committee meetings. And the memo went out to you that lists the meetings. We have another one we have two in October 5 and 19, November 9, December 7, January 4 and 25, February 8, March 1 and 22nd, April 12th, March 3rd and 24th, and then June 7th and 21st. Questions? Hopefully, avoided holidays. Tried to look through that. Any other questions or comments on it? Nope.
John, you're going to put together a different schedule for the schools that we'll visit on those secondary dates? Is that how that's going to work?
Yeah. So the idea will be, so I don't, October is the first one coming up. I don't know whether superintendent, whether you had a chance to talk to principals about that yet.
Not yet.
But that's on her agenda. But that's right. So the second meeting in those months would be when we would go in some fashion to those other schools, whether we do partially remote and partially in the building, kind of yet to be determined, but yes, which is kind of the pattern we started last year and then became truncated because of the pandemic.
John, just one note. Will this be updated on the website? Because the list is from last year as of right now.
Yep.
Thank you.
He just wants to make sure we update it on the website.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I apologize. We usually vote this earlier. We usually do it in the summer. My apologies. So it would have been on the website already. Any other questions? Okay, so motion's been made. Hasn't? No. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Amy, your job. No, thank you.
Lily Reed.
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca.
Yes.
Mark Sideris.
Yes.
Kendra Foley.
Yes.
David Stokes.
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes, Amy Donahue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. One more, approval of minutes. Is that? Well, to adjourn. Oh, you're right. Okay, approval of minutes from August 24th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Roll call, Amy?
Lily Reed.
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca.
Yes.
Mark Sideris.
Yes.
Kendra Foley.
Yes.
David Stokes.
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes, Amy Donahue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, reports, Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. David.
Yes, thank you, John. Just pulling up my report here. The Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee met on Wednesday, September 9th at 4 o'clock in the Phillips Building. Committee members only. I was the only committee member that was present, but Dr. Galston was also there. And then John and Amy were remote, and the public also was remote by Zoom. Lori Cable was there, and we had a special guest, Wayne Matson, the principal from Griffith and Very Incorporated, who actually did the testing and presented the results along with Lori. So they presented all of the final testing results. The big items Dr. Galston's already spoken about, but I can reiterate them again as we get there. The report is supposed to be attached to the minutes. I will apologize that that didn't come through when it got transferred to a PDF, so I'll work with Ariel to make sure that the link is at least available in the report so that people can get to it properly. We had lots of discussion about it. You heard, though, about screens, you heard about ventilation systems, univents, and so forth, and MERV 8 versus MERV 13 filtration, where we can do MERV 13, which is the better filtration for smaller particles. We are doing it, but most of our univents only have MERV 8 capabilities, and in order for the ventilation, the airflow to actually flow through properly, we can't go beyond that MERV 8 which is the manufacturer's recommended filtration. We talked about opening windows and making sure that there were screens, and it sounds like we're definitely making sure that there are screens for all the windows. as best as we can. And then there are doors, obviously, that would also be able to be open and have cross ventilation, which some people have highlighted as important as part of that air flow and air ventilation component. And then as Dr. Galton also indicated, 24/7, we are running all of the ventilation systems in all the buildings. And so after school is out or after the building is vacated by the majority of the personnel, except for the custodians, that allows for the air to be recirculated and filtered again and essentially cleaned. And then we also talked about air filters in all of the classrooms that did not have proper ventilation or windows or both. And then it sounds as though we may be expanding that program in the to include all classrooms. I think that's still to be decided, but it's certainly being looked at. Anyway, there were recommendations from the report are already being completed, purchased, or put into the work queue. Additional, and I'll say Lori's department has already done a phenomenal amount of work toward those recommendations. In addition, there were questions and comments from the public that did lead to additional considerations that are under investigation. So we're still working on it, even though there's a report there. And then we moved on to the second item, which was a review of procedures required for LEED certification for the elementary school projects. And so Lori presented these 4 procedures to the subcommittee for the new Cuniff and Hosmer elementary schools, which are part of the town's elementary schools project, and are required for the LEED certification. You know, we're going after a LEED Gold level, but I think it's required potentially for all LEED certification, no matter what. You can see the 4 procedures are about facility maintenance and renovation, waste, pest, and cleaning. Lori emphasized that her department already follows all of these procedures, but that they were not documented in the required format for LEED certification. And so she's just complying with that portion so that we get the right number, we get the points so that we can get the certification of the LEED for both of those buildings. There are some additional considerations that were specific to procurement, and those are already either being followed or have been shared with the Finance and Operations Office for their inclusion in their own procedures. But for the most part, again, we were already doing all of that work. There's nothing new there in reality. It's just now written in the correct format. And then there was no additional new business or announcements, and we adjourned at 5:20.
All right. Thank you, David. Any questions on the report? Thank you for holding that subcommittee report.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Amy, roll call?
Lily Reed.
Yes.
Lindsay Mosca.
Yes.
Max Adiris.
Yes.
Kendra Foley.
Yes.
David Stokes.
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes. Amy Donahue?
Yes.
Okay. Next report is Building for the Future, the update on the elementary schools project. Art?
Yes, I'm pleased to announce that steel was delivered, beginning of the steel was delivered to the Cuniff School today. We're looking at doing what's known as a topping off ceremony sometime in November. And for those that don't know, that's when the last piece of steel goes on the building, and at least the building committee members and all the rest of the invitees will be able to sign that beam. We'll do the same thing at the Hosmer, but it's exciting. So we're getting there. But it comes with some challenges, and over the last few days, both sites have had some challenges with respect to a lot of activity with dirt and streets being dirty, and we have addressed them at this point. My understanding in speaking to the project management team and the architect, we've the subcontractor that was hired to remove all of this dirt is taking, in some cases, 60 to 70 loads a day, which is unheard of. So we're trying, it is going to come to an end, but it's put a burden on both neighborhoods. We are addressing it, and we will probably be addressing it again on Wednesday evening at our building committee meeting. But rest assured that we are on top of it, and the building inspector is on top of it, and everybody that's involved will make sure that we comply and do what's right. We don't need these kinds of issues this early on. So that's my update on the elementary schools.
Okay, thank you. High school?
So the meeting on Wednesday, will continue our discussions about elementary, sorry. Whew, lost track of that, it happens. So on our meeting coming up, we'll talk about the elementaries, but at our last meeting, the school building committee really decided to focus its attention on the existing high school site and the Phyllis administration site, and have asked the architect to really consider all of the various options that are available here. We spent some time considering a different thought about, building a new high school at that site and having the gym and the auditorium over here. So we continue to play with the options right in this location, because I think that for myriad reasons, this really does offer great potential for being an excellent site for the high school. And so, I think we're all very excited to see the progress that the architect is making in terms of finalizing the various plans that we presented, and we will be having a community forum at some point shortly about the high school.
I do want to add one thing, that one of the motions that was made and passed with one person voting no last week was the fact that the school building committee chose not to further any designs on Orchard Street, which means the public works facility, the track area, and the football stadium. So that was all taken off the table. I think that's an important piece, because the building committee now wants to focus on the options between this building and the high school building.
Right. Yeah, and just to echo that, I think, sitting and watching the presentations, as I've said probably before, it's amazing what the architect has come up with this site. I think we all went into it, wondering, really, this is a small little piece of property, et cetera. But what he has come up with is fantastic, including green space. So I think we're all very excited about the opportunity for utilizing the most center point in Watertown for the high school.
Okay.
Oh, Lindsay has her hand up.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Sorry, I just wanted to, if anyone watching is inspired to look back at some of the building committee documents, and they're looking at, what we're talking about in terms of options that are moving forward, I would just point out that the last meeting we had about the high school was strictly about one version of options, because we asked for further exploration on that. And the options that were sort of left on the table to talk about were not all included in that meeting. And so things that are in the option number 1 category is what we talked about last meeting, but the 3D option is also very seriously being studied and being considered. So I just don't want people to look at that one previous meeting and assume that that's what's on the table. We just happen to be further exploring that one set of options to compare to 3D that is very interesting to the committee at this time. So I just wanted to point that out, because if you go back only one meeting, that's not the whole story.
And then just to add on that, and this came up at the last meeting too, we're required to look at renovating the high school. So you'll see that as an option. It might not be the most viable option, but it has to be done. I think people wondered, why are we even considering that? That's an MSBA requirement, and that's why we're doing that.
Yeah, I think as Mark indicated, so Wednesday this week, the school building committee is meeting at 6 o'clock on Zoom. I will add also there's a sustainability subcommittee at 5 o'clock, which will continue some of the discussions around some sustainability issues for the elementary.
In particular, the regulations have changed on the solar requirements by the state. So we're going to have to do change order and present it to the committee for some additional needs at the hospital.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Other questions? Kendra?
I just want to make sure I'm clear and to clarify for others. The next meeting on the 16th is about the elementary, and the next one, which will be about the high school, is going to be October 7th. Is that accurate?
And there's going to be a community forum
Yes.
somewhere
Somewhere in
that
there.
time, between now and maybe October 15th, I guess.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Budget update. We do have something from Ms. Perkins. I don't know if she wants to.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just, obviously I have throughout this memo for the first time, there's just so many moving parts, and I alluded to that. Feedback. Alluded to that several times. So I just want to say that on the FY20, that was the final version last week. And you'd see $115 was basically in the available. And that's because the town had to delay their closing for 2 weeks. And we paid a bill since then from 20 that just came in $115 less. That was actually cleared off today and added to our prepaid tuition. I had to wait to get permission from Tom Tracy to do that, so we did that today. So I won't reprint the report, but I just wanted to point out why that was there. That was just in flux when we created the reports. And just for everybody that is on the meeting and listening, or listening from home and not maybe seeing this as we go through it, the FY21, we typically have a lot of the salaries encumbered by now. We do have a lot of them encumbered, but with moving staff around from, whether it's remote or people might be choosing to take an unpaid leave of absence this year, or a variety of things, and still also bringing in new hires. We're not quite where we normally would have been at this point with having all the final salaries in. And then now that we know that we are going to have athletics, all of the athletic stipends and things still have to go in. So there was just some things that were delayed a little bit this year to get in on the salary lines. So that's where we are on that. The expenses, again, due to the unique circumstances, we would normally have very heavy supply ordering in August that would have shown up on this report. However, people will be delaying that until it gets closer to going to the hybrid. There are certainly some supplies being ordered right now, but I'm sure that we will have a heavy ordering period into October and November. So just be delayed a little bit from the past. The main thing that I wanted to point out is that the grants, which we know they're approved for the Easter grant and the reopening grant, but we just were able to set up the accounts this week after getting word from DESE that we could go ahead and spend out of them, even though they haven't approved them in their grant website, their database. They're still working through getting those in there. So we have had to put some of our orders for air purifiers and other things against our operating budget to be able to get them ordered. But as soon as all of this falls into place, some of those expenses will move to the Easter grant and the reopening grant and free the dollars back up in the budget. So we're just sort of in a weird place right now of where everything can be put until everything's fully in place. So, and obviously there's some new software programs being vetted that will be in place of some of the normal supply orders. We will have a little bit of savings on transportation, but again, we'll also collect less in bus fees. So each thing we have that we might see a small savings, we're having an offsetting new expense this year just because it's changing. So I can't say that we would really have any savings overall due to the delay of school opening. So I just wanted to point that out that we'll see as we go. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Professional appointments and leaves of absence, etc. Any questions or comments? This probably has most of the new teachers.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, it's hiring season.
Yes.
A strange hiring season, but it's hiring season nonetheless.
But it is this is one of those that does capture some of the key changes in terms of new people coming into the district. How many new teachers were there?
Well, we've added a few more. So Ken, do you know exactly the number of new teachers? It's like 16. Yeah, he's
16.
Yep.
16, okay. Great, okay, thank you. Next would be school committee chair. I only want to just kind of reiterate statement earlier, on behalf of the school committee, just to thanks to all the teachers and other educators for all the work that they're doing to get us ready for the start of the school in just a short period of time. So all the work during these 13 days and the summer professional development that Dr. McGinnis talked about earlier, it's a tremendous amount of work. I mean, this is an extraordinary time. That's pretty obvious, I guess, to everybody. But appreciate the willingness of teachers, administrators, and everybody to really step up to the plate to take on a real big challenge. And so very much on behalf of the school committee, thanks to all those people for all the work that they're doing. Superintendent's report.
I pretty much the same thing, meaning what I am most impressed by is that all of the work I think we're doing here in Watertown is teachers leading teachers. And I think when you start to see the feedback that comes back, I think they're very appreciative of each other's knowledge. And I think that's impressive, just to take on that leadership role at the teacher level. And I think that's where we're going to find a lot of our success is knowing that we have the knowledge and the ability and the talent right here. We don't need to hire anyone to come in and tell us how to do this. We're really learning and growing together as a community. And I think that's really accurate for the anti-racist educator work that we did on the 8th and coming up on the 16th. I just such a big thank you to our equity leaders team for taking that bold, kind of courageous step to lead their colleagues in some very serious dialogue. And when it comes to Zoom pedagogy, it was done so well. I've never really thought about like orchestrating 500 people and doing 3 different sessions of 150 people and then breakout rooms of like 46 different breakout rooms so that you could have a conversation with 4 or 5 people about very serious conversations. And I think that's what the success was. You weren't ever spoken at, you were just always part of the process. And I'm just so pleased by our staff and just that dedication, like you said. As we're heading into September 22nd, as I keep saying all along to our families, we are here for you. We are here for your children. We are committed, and we know that we have a lot to show and to demonstrate to you that we are going to do best by your kids. But I think what you saw tonight is that deep level of dedication and commitment that our teachers have for our children in Watertown. And we are so excited about September 22nd. We're ready to go, and we look forward to just kicking this year off and making it the best it can be. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Dawson. Any new business? New business? Right. Announcements, we've already mentioned community forum tomorrow, September 15th at 6 o'clock. Building committee, we mentioned that, it's on Wednesday. Another community forum on the 22nd, and the next school committee meeting is on October 5th at 7 p.m. Is there a public forum? Anyone wish to speak in the public forum? Nope. Okay, there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Amy, last time, thank you.
That's okay. I just don't know what it's going to be like when I have 4 kids trying to be on the same internet as me. I'm already losing with 2 of them on it now. All right, Lily Reed.
Yes.
Cindy Mosca.
Yes.
Max Adair. Kendra Foley. Hello. Yes. Okay. David Stokes.
Yes.
John Ports.
Yes, Amy here.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.